Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and being a nice person. And, the reality is, a lot of you may know this, but I'm going to just say this for those that may not know it. Just don't think that just because you're nice to people and you try to express goodwill and benevolence that everything is always going to go right for you, or you're even going to have a good life in general because hey, I'm living proof of it that, that could be, it's very far from the truth. And the thing is, you can have, and you may want to know why, this could be connected with astrology. I'm going to tell you, connection with it as far as, as far as benevolent, kind placements in a chart. Like in my case, I got Neptune in the seventh house. It can show a lot of sacrifice for others, a lot of altruism, compassion for other people. On the negative side, though, sometimes that can attract, people, that might be, could be involved in drugs or alcohol. Sometimes even people with mental illness. And I'm not saying I have anything against people with mental illness, but the thing is, if you attract those people and if those people let their mental illness affect you, in a detriment, to your detriment, then if they have a detrimental effect on you, then of course that can be problematic. But anyway, and the thing is, I also got Saturn in the 12th house, which is really similar because that could be a lot of work involved, where you're sacrificing your time for others. The Sun in Cancer, the basic fundamental character, can be one that's sympathetic, nurturing, caring, dedicated, devoted. It's a good, can be protective. And the thing is too, you know, when I look at this, next thing I want to get at, when we talk about having those nice placements, the kind placements in the chart, we know again that doesn't really, it doesn't mean that good things are always going to happen to you. Now, if I was doing things for others with this great expectation or anticipation of everything being rosy in my life, then that would really contradict or defeat the whole purpose of doing it. Now, it would be nice to have more appreciation in people, to show more love and kindness as a result of it, at least. But a lot of times those things don't happen. You look at me right now and you can see again, I'm still in the barren room. Somebody said, well, Edwin, complaining about things don't do anything. Well, I mean, that's actually a good point, because if you just look at my situation now and you look at the fact that I have made critical videos regarding what's going on in the astrological community and how it may be affecting me to my detriment, you could see that has not changed anything. I have people that a lot of people just want to abstain from any connection with me, and I've had to accept and understand that. I've had at least one person say, that I'm pushing people away. Well, the thing is, you got to have people in your life in order to push them away. There's hardly anybody anyway in my life now, so if they're not there, you can't really push them away anyway, right? They're gone. They've dissipated. Basically into thin air. Maybe it's my moon, the moon in Gemini carousel. It's like a turnstile. It's like people are going in and out of a revolving door in my life constantly. But the thing is, what I want to get at is that you look at me and my situation, being at a lower stature in life and social status. So again, being a kind person, what has that really done for you? But like I said, you can't have the anticipation of things always being rosy just because just because you've done good things for others. It just, in many cases, it doesn't work like that. Now, and again, your life really has nothing to show for it. My life has nothing to show for it in general. That's the next point, the point I'm making in all this. And another thing is that what I have to remember and be cognizant of, that there can be subtle blessings from the man upstairs. I mean, I am a believer, in all respect to people's spiritual and religious views out there. I do believe there's a higher power. I do believe in God. I think there is something where we can get blessings that we may not always be cognizant of or aware of. I mean, it's like with me, I've had, basic good health during a good part of my life. I haven't, I'm 54. I haven't even gotten, the colon or prostate, tested. And I feel very good right now. I don't feel like, not writhing in pain. I do have a roof over my head. I've been able to survive and subsist. And the thing is, too, I mean, you look at, people, I'm not comparing myself to her by any means, but there was someone, she's probably not alive anymore, someone named Mother Teresa. Some of you may have heard of her, and she dealt with all kinds of adversity and trials and tribulations. And, she was doing nothing but kind, benevolent, charitable acts for others. And so she was like living proof that you could be a certain kind of person and do the right things, but that doesn't mean everything's always going to be right for you in your life and your existence. And, she was living proof of that. I think she had to combat a lot of disease and certain things as well. So she had a very hard existence, even in spite of trying, showing a lot of compassion and altruism toward others. And the thing is, another point I want to make is that, some of the nicest people, wind up being the unhappiest. I saw something about this one day. The thing about, that is, when you could look at this a number of ways. People that go out and try to, express goodwill toward others, and, their life becomes dominated by helping others. Well, if you're actually happy in doing that, that's one thing. And if it ameliorates, or I should say elevates, some happiness in your life, then that is one thing. But I think what happens with some people is they get so caught up and dominated by, doing this for a person, doing that for another person. They deprive themselves to some degree, and that's why some of those people may wind up unhappy. So I think the key is just to, be careful who you're showing kindness for. At least get people that are appreciative of it. It's not necessarily about getting material reward for your efforts. It's about, just being valued and appreciated, people understanding, what is going on, what you're doing, and that they see the good that you did for them. And see, another thing too is that, I talked about, I really stated this before. I wrote, doing, doing the right thing doesn't guarantee anything in life, and not to be redundant, but I am living proof of that based on where I am now, in terms of my life. And also, another thing I want to get at is that, some of you, most of you would understand this, the believers out there about God, that He doesn't punish. It may seem like it sometimes. It always made me wonder if, based on where I'm at in my life and being 54 years old, being at a very, making an income that's well below average, was God punishing me? But, the reality is, it's not so much about punishment. A lot of times it's just lessons. And I do think, like maybe an emblem or some kind of example to show others that, just because you could be, a decent person and do what you think, is constantly ethical or morally right, being considerate, doing the right thing, doesn't always mean that life is going to do right by you. And I think, God could be using me as almost like, one of the symbols out there to get people to understand that. For people that think, well, just because I'm a nice person, all these good things are going to happen to me, those things that couldn't be further from the truth. And the thing is also, too, that, there's a thing, I may never even have, my own home. I have to feel at home where I'm at. And, that's just another part, my life situation, which, has caused some, despondency. I'm not, I don't have any, full-blown depression or anything. Somebody had wrote me and asked me if I was okay and everything. But that can cause people to feel melancholy, when you look at yourself and, it's a reflection, just your own home life of where you're at, and the fact that this has been a very humbling experience for me, being in a certain, living situation for a good part of my life. I mean, I was at a hotel for a little bit, but it's still, I never, I may never actually have the actual home that a lot of other people, have. Some of you may know I succumbed to injuries in my life. I have, at this point in time, irrevocable nerve damage, which has caused a lot of issues, a lot of restrictions, and it's been hard for me to make any kind of headway. And I sit here, doing the astrology videos for almost 12 years with virtually nobody in my existence. And, it goes back to the fact that, just because you're doing something and you put yourself out there, you can't expect everything to go, according to what it would seem like it should be. You know, People say, well, I got the comments blocked on YouTube, but the thing is, they could use that as the excuse for not connecting with me. But I did have the comments for enabled, near 2.5 years, from the time I first started my YouTube astrology channel to early 2015. And I don't know, what would have been the excuse then for the people not connecting with me? So that is my answer to that. I've been a person in my life, call myself a stand-up guy, right? That is, actually stood up for people from time to time. I had some of you may remember that I did a video, one time in which I was standing up to, for the YouTube astrologers over, something. And, nobody ever even, to this day, I might never get a thank you. And it just would have been nice to get that. But, I'm not part of the clan, really. I'm not, in this elite group, or, I think people just, and I hate to say arrogance as a reason why I was never contacted or thanked for this, but it just makes me wonder about that. I think sometimes you have people that do think they're too good to reach out and say, hey, Edwin, thank you, man. That was good what you did. But if you do things though at the same time looking for personal accolades and thank you, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because a lot of times those things are not going to happen, and I've just had to accept it, and I have to feel, the man upstairs, God sees what I do, and He appreciates, the efforts that were made. That's about the only thing I can do now, because there's very few people on our mortal mundane plane that even want anything to do with me at this point. And to my credit, I've survived. And a lot of people might have jumped off a cliff or done something drastic, but I hung in there. I stayed alive, like the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And see, people can't really relate and understand, what's going on with me until they were actually there. People that have family, that have friends, that they are invited to places, to events where people congregate. And somebody like me that just, has gotten a cold shoulder for so long, those people do not understand, because most people have not really actually experienced that. And until you actually do, then you know what I'm going through in terms of feeling distraught, so on and so forth. And I thought another thing was interesting too. Speaking of, the astrology chart, my chart has the North Node in Pisces in the 11th house. And what somebody said to me one time is another, astrologer, very good astrologer, and she told me, Edwin, maybe you might have been destined to isolate yourself from society, at least to a certain degree, because Pisces, North Node is our destiny. Pisces is isolation. 11th house is humanity and society, so you can do the math. So I believe that may have had something, as far as astrologically to do with that. I also have Saturn in the 12th house, which can indicate, reclusive, introverted tendencies. So then I have preponderance of planets on the bottom half of the chart, which shows exceptional, introversion. So there are certain things in my chart for this, and this isn't really about complaining so much. It's just more about letting people out there become aware and cognizant if they've been in a similar life situation, and they feel, they've done, certain things for others, and they're looking at themselves right now and don't understand where their, why their life situation is below average. It's really what it comes down to. It's because there's no real correlation between the two. It's not about, well, benevolent actions means I'm going to have, a real affluent or prosperous existence, because in a lot of cases, and including mine as an example, it couldn't be further from the truth, and I'm living proof of it right here. Right now, I may wind up dying alone, but I just have to try to remember to try to die with my spirit intact, and that's really what I have to look at, I guess, at this point in time. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.